So I have before me two Lenovo Slim Pro 9Is. I have the 14-inch model and the 16-inch model. 14-inch has the i7 and the 16 has the i9. They both have RTX 4070. So in this video, we're gonna go ahead and check out the build quality and usability of both laptops, and then we'll see from a performance standpoint which one is right for you. Now, first and foremost, obviously if you want a little bit smaller laptop, you're gonna go for the 14-inch model. Now they both have the same aspect ratio in regards to the screen, but one thing that's super interesting is you can see the 16-inch model has the rounded bevel around the screen, where the 14-inch has the squared off bezel. So that's kind of a little neat difference between the 14 and the 16. Now they both have webcams on the top bezel of the screen. Here's a quick sample of each of those so you can see what they look and sound like. This is the webcam on the Lenovo Slim Pro 9i 14-inch model, and a little sample of the audio for you as well. This is the webcam on the Lenovo Slim Pro 9i, and a little sample of the audio for you as well. And of course, here's a quick audio sample of both of the speakers in use so you can hear what those sound like. Now, as we have our eyes on the screen, both have very bright screens. The 16-inch model has 638 nits of screen brightness at 100% sRGB, 90% Adobe RGB, and 99% DCI-P3, all at a delta of 0.79. And the 14-inch model has 671 nits at 100% sRGB, 88% Adobe RGB, and 98% DCI-P3, all at a delta of 1.21. So really great screens, really great brightness. Now, with that, let's talk about battery life. They both have 75 watt-hour batteries, and they both have almost the same battery life. You can see the results coming up on the screen now. We're not able to turn off the dedicated GPU, so what you see here before you in regards to the battery life tests are with the GPUs on. I set both laptops to 20% screen brightness with Windows battery saver mode turned on, as well as having the quiet mode or silent mode inside of the Lenovo Vantage Center. So that's how we achieve the battery results. Now going ahead and taking a look at the build quality before we get too carried away with the interior of the laptop, these laptops are built very nicely. Great aluminum materials, bottom cover assembled into the side panel very nicely. I love the rounded beveled edge. It's very comfortable to hold. The only thing that's a little catchy is this area back here. If you kind of run your hand across it, it's a little on the catchy side, a little sharp, but shouldn't cut you by any means. And then going ahead and looking at the 16-inch model, same thing, it's just larger. So nice beveled rounded edges, a little bit sharp here if you run your hand across it, but it should not give you any issues. As you can see, we have the speakers here along the bottom of the chassis from what you just got an audio sample for a little bit ago. Now, as far as weight and thickness is concerned, obviously the 16-inch model is gonna be a little bit heavier and slightly thicker, but punch for punch, they're both nice slim laptops. Going ahead and taking a look at the ports, let's see what we have offered here. On the left side panel, we have our power adapter for the 16-inch model, but you're actually going to power the 14-inch model with USB Type-C. So power adapter, both have HDMI, USB Type-A, USB Type-C, headphone jack for the 16, two USB Type-Cs, and a SD card reader for the 14. On the other side panel, we have the SD card reader for the 16, with our power button, and we have a USB Type-A. Where on this one, we have two USB Type-A's for the 14-inch model, power switch, as well as the headphone jack and the manual cutoff switch for the webcam. Both have those. I might have called the power button the power adapter, so if I did, correcting that now, power button. Now, in regards to the upgrade path, you're going to have an upgradable storage, but you're not going to have upgradable RAM. The RAM is soldered to the motherboard, so just keep that in mind. If you want to upgrade these laptops, you're not going to be able to from a RAM perspective, but you would from a storage perspective. Now, let's go ahead and get the laptops opened, which you are able to do easily with one hand. They both open and close easily with one hand. And then taking a look at the screen bounce on each of them, not much screen bounce for the 14-inch, but the 16-inch has a little bit more. So you can see when I move, it vibrates a little bit on the 14, then stops, but there's a little more shake on the 16. Now, as we spin these around, in case I forgot to mention, these are both 3K mini LED displays. Taking a look at the trackpads, if you're looking for a massive trackpad, you're going to lean towards the 16-inch model. However, the 14-inch model is no slouch. That is a big trackpad for a 14-inch laptop. They both sound great to the click. However, I'm going to say the 16-inch model that I have before me feels a little bit more sturdy and refined, a little bit more solidly secured to the actual keyboard deck. This one feels a little like rattly. I'm not loving it on the 14-inch. The 16 feels much better. I'm gonna give you a quick audio sample of both of these in use so you can hear what they sound like. Now shifting our focus down to the actual keyboards, you can see we have numpad on the 16-inch model, no numpad on the 14-inch. They both have the nice dipped keys, classic Lenovo keyboard setup. They're more of a plastic feel. Both have a medium to short key press. Punch for punch, I like the keyboards a lot. I like the space on the 16-inch model and how big the trackpad is for the 16-inch model without giving us an absolutely massive computer. Because if you're looking at it, it is definitely a little bit wider and a little bit taller, but it's not that much bigger. It's definitely bigger, but it's not like, whoa, that's a huge laptop compared to the 14-inch model. Now, before we get into the performance, if you're curious about the exact price and availability of each of these models, you can head down in the description below and click those links. If you do make a purchase, I'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. But of course, that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Now, in regards to the performance section, they both have 32 gigs of RAM. 14-inch has the i7, 16-inch has the i9. They both have RTX 4050s. So we're really close besides the processor. And so let's go ahead and jump into the benchmarks and see what kind of differences that made. Now going ahead and looking at Geekbench single core and multi-core, you can see that the 14-inch model fell down the charts a little bit on single core performance by about 100 points. Now looking at multi-core, you can see the same thing, just a slight difference between the two laptops going from i7 to i9. Now going on to R23, the 14-inch model is just behind the 16-inch model once again, scoring a 1,908 versus the 2,050 from the i9 processor in the 16-inch model. Now going for multi-core performance, you can see the i9 gives us a 17,960, the i7 a 16,311. So right now, according to the performance, it shows that the i9 is slightly ahead of the i7. This is good. That means they're optimized correctly in the laptops, because it's crazy when you get different processors and they're just like jumping all over the place. So we got some nice consistency here in these benchmarks. Now moving on to Photoshop and After Effects. This is an area where I was quite surprised. We saw the story flip quite a bit in this circumstance. The 14-inch model is scoring a 1,128. The 16-inch model, an 891. I've ran this test a lot of different times and was not able to get that score higher. I might do some more tests in the future to try and get that score up and report back to you guys, but as it sits right now, I ran it multiple times and I was not able to get a better score. In After Effects, a very similar story. We see the 14-inch model performing above the 16-inch model by roughly 200 points. And so if you're looking for Photoshop or After Effects performance, the 14-inch model with the i7 processor is a better buy according to my tests. Now let's go ahead and keep looking through the benchmarks to see if this story continues. Now going ahead and looking at Blender Classroom, these are both using the RTX 4050 and the benchmarks are much closer. We see a 739 versus a 724. So that keeps us in the correct perspective. Now looking at Autodesk 3ds Max, Autodesk Maya, PTC Creo, and SolidWorks, they stick very close to each other throughout those benchmarks, one teetering above the other throughout. So for 3D modeling, this would not be my top pick. The RTX 4050 is not a beast in regards to performance. However, if you're thinking, well, what about like a 3050 or like a 3060 in years past, it would see some improvements above that. But in regards to the latest 40 series, I would recommend an RTX 4060 or 4070 if you're trying to buy the latest tech and get good performance, especially for 3D modeling. Now, similar to After Effects and Photoshop, for the 4K export, this is a 9-minute 4K clip. Place it in Premiere Pro and export it out at full quality 4K YouTube settings. We see the 14-inch model with the i7 outperforming the i9 model. We have a 253 versus a 278. 18. Nothing insane as far as like minutes difference, but that's a good 40 seconds difference between each of the laptops. Now I did test the 6K BRAW export and we saw a 19-minute export for the 14-inch model and a 2148 for the 16-inch model. So once again, you're gonna see better performance out of the 14-inch model. But let's go ahead and take a look at playback. What kind of results did we have there? For the 4K playback, 0 drop frames for both laptops. For 6K BRAW, 309 for the 16-inch model, 232 for the 14, and then for 6K red footage, 997 for the 16-inch model, and then 871 for the 14-inch model. So in regards to playback, these laptops crushed it for an RTX 4050. I was very blown away. So if you're looking for a laptop for either 4K or 6K video editing and you want a thin laptop on the go and you love Lenovo, these two are great options. Now looking at DaVinci Resolve, about 5 minutes and 11 seconds for the 14-inch model, 5 minutes and 29 seconds for the 16-inch model. Very respectable export times. Now, punch for punch, if you're looking for a laptop for Photoshop, After Effects, or Premiere Pro video editing, both will work. However, we did see better performance out of the 14-inch model for whatever reason, okay? I'm gonna keep running tests and trying to figure this out, but for whatever reason, we're seeing better performance out of the 14-inch model. If you have a hypothesis, comment below. Let me know what you think. I'd be super curious. But punch for punch, they're both great laptops. It really is a size difference more than anything because as you've seen in the benchmarks, they're pretty much neck and neck on most tests. Links in the description if you're ready to make a purchase, or click or tap the screen here for more videos to help you with your purchasing decision. I'll see you in the next one.